So it's definitely at best, it's in danger. At worst, I feel like it's becoming largely a dying art form. I don't think it'll ever go away, but I feel like the heyday of comic books, which was first embraced by the servicemen overseas, and then secondarily by the children when the servicemen came home and stopped reading comic books. It was the children that embraced it, and then they grew up and became grown-ups, and they kept reading. And then there was still another generation of people that read. I'm part of that. I'm part of that generation. But now the kids don't read. So you're dealing with a fan base that is continuously getting older.
Hey guys, it is Tristan with Nerdut's Newsstand, and I am so excited today. We have Brad, the DC Universe Geek. All of his links to his channel will be down below, but I have been watching him for years. He does an amazing job with toys. He loves Superman and Lois, loves the whole geeky fandom, and I thought, what a perfect opportunity to bring on an expert in something a little different than what I do, which is primarily comic books, but we share common interests. So I thought about the toy market. Somebody that can tell you a little bit more than I can. So why don't you tell everybody about yourself and let us know kind of how you got into collecting the mass amount of toys we see behind you.
Well, I've been a big DC fan since I was little. I would say 1984, I got my first Superpowers collection, Superman. Those of us who are old school, you know that you squeeze their legs, for example, Superman, and he punches, squeeze Batman's leg. I mean, wouldn't you punch if someone started squeezing your legs? But so I started with the Superpowers collection figures, and that was kind of the beginning of the obsession. Every time there was a new line of DC figures that came out when I was a kid, which really wasn't that often, to tell you the truth. There was only a few more when I was a younger kid. I tried to get my hands on all of those, but that began my obsession with action figures in general. So it wasn't just DC. That is my first love, as you can see behind me. But I also got into Thundercats, Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joes, Silverhawks, Bionic 6. My goodness, you name it, I was collecting it. If it was a bipedal plastic version of a character that I knew from a cartoon show, it was on my shelf. I had it in a bin somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I took a break collecting when I got older. So around 16, I stopped buying comics and moved out, and I was just like a busker, sang for my supper, like a street kid.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, whole different story. Got my life back together, and it wasn't until a few years after I married my wife that I really got back into collecting. She did buy me something for a wedding gift. She bought me the Superman and Lois Silver Age 2-pack. And that was
that's cool.
Yeah, I kind of got the bug going, but it wasn't for another 2 years that I would begin actively pursuing collecting again.
And is that kind of when you got back into collecting? Is that when you started your channel, or did you start showing off your old toys?
Yeah, okay, well, see, the funny thing is I started collecting years before I started my channel, because I've been married. Actually, yesterday was my 19th anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long time. She's amazing. She puts up with all this. And she lets me spend the money on it. Pretty much everything I make from YouTube goes back into the channel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's not saying, "Where's the money?" She's good about that. But then no, actually, I collected for a long time, but I didn't review things. I was aware of people like Shartimus Prime, Anthony Customs, the Review Spot. There's a couple old school review channels. Some that don't upload anymore though, like Box and Type X. He doesn't really review figures anymore, and Sean Long, he doesn't really do that much anymore. But no, it wasn't until I would say 4 years ago I really started wanting to review action figures, and really it wasn't because of other action figure reviewers. It was because I was a fan of Ashen's. I am a fan of Ashen's. I love his review style. He's just honest and witty and funny and stuff like that. So that's actually how I got into reviewing. And it started with older figures. So I had this a show called Kit Bash Customs, where I would kind of go through my recipes and review the figures that I'd customized. And I would review older figures that I had just kind of lying around and in my displays. And then I thought, well, why don't I start buying new stuff and reviewing that. And that was probably about 4-ish years ago. Yeah,
I would say I found you in Shadowman's Prime about the same time. It was about 3 years ago, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is such a neat facet, because YouTube to me was almost, I watched it for music videos, and I'm like, they're doing this kind of so cool. I absolutely love it. Now I noticed, maybe it's my own bias, but that you may have a little bias towards DC. So
do you think?
is that something that has been since childhood, or is it the characters? What draws you to that company above the others?
That's a good question. Well, you know what? I think some of it is just exposure, right? So if someone was 4 or 5 years old and they first got exposed to the Ninja Turtles universe, then that would be their first real contact point. Having the toys, having the cartoon, having those play imaginative times, on the carpet in the living room floor or whatever with your toys. For me, it just happened to be DC. So my mom and dad were buying me comic books. Like I had the Red Tornado issue 1 from the 80s.
Goodness.
Yeah, and I had Batman and the Outsiders, the first issue. I had so I was reading the comics, and my mom and dad were buying me the toys, and it was just. I suppose if they had bought me Secret Wars first and bought me a bunch of Marvel comics first, I would have gotten into Marvel. But now I've stuck with it so long that it's like a comfortable thing. And I do prefer DC Comics characters more than Marvel. Not that Marvel is less than DC. I just prefer the fictional universe of the DC universe better. I prefer those they're more old school kind of characters in comparison to Marvel, which Marvel really came into their being with Fantastic Four and with Spider-Man. But all the really big DC characters were already well established by that point.
Right, exactly.
So
I don't know. It's a weird thing to describe why you like one more than the other. It's like, it really does come down to characters.
It does.
But also it's world building. It's knowing that, we're Coast City and Gotham and all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and you were there for the stories.
What's that?
And you were there for the stories.
Yes.
Right?
Going through the time with them.
Yeah. I haven't been there for the Marvel stories, right? So I don't have that same attachment. I know the character of Peter Parker, right? I know what he's like. I know what Captain America's like. I know what Tony's like. But I've been there for the long haul with DC. So these characters are like, okay, here's a good analogy. When you read a good book series, right? Maybe you get 6 books out of a series where it might follow the same character, the same set of characters. Well, I've been reading the comics since I was 5. So there's such connected longevity of these characters that they're just, more about them than about classic literature fictional characters, because there's so much material on them. They've built their characters for so long that for the longtime fan, it's just part of life. They've just always been there.
Yep. And I totally get, and they play the long game, I think, a little better too. Where some of the old stories that I absolutely love where Cataclysm goes into no man's land, and those were long thought out, orchestrated things, and they took years. And it's like, I pick up X-Men #1 and I'm like, I like the girl with green hair. She's cute. That's Polaris, right? I'm going to Google going, I used to love Chris Claremont's X-Men, but I don't know who this chick is. And why is she not Dark Phoenix? And it's okay, I'm just going to go back to DC. But do you check out indie comics ever?
A little bit. I go to a site, Read Comic Online.
Yeah. I
know. I buy my comics, but occasionally I'll read some online that I know I can't find locally, like Jupiter's Legacy. I had to read that on Read Comic
Requiem?
Online. Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. But
the art.
I don't go to it as often as I'd like to, because in the recent year and a half, 2 years, there's it's basically just a place to read comics and have game women bouncing around in your face.
Oh my God, it's so bad. I use it for my thumbnails because you can get that like high quality picture, right?
Yeah.
So I'll get the high quality picture on there. It's better than a screenshot. And I'm like, God, make sure I don't get her boobs in it. Like
that's where I got all my pictures for Comic Talk. I would buy the comic, read the comic,
and
then I would have the comic on the desk in front of me, just so that I could, have it right there. But then I would have all the pictures. I would drag them all into my computer from Read Comic Online because they're high res.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I use it more often than I should for that. But, if it's going to serve a purpose besides pirating, might as well be to kind of give people the upper hand, make them have some pretty thumbnails. Might as well.
Well, you know what? I don't, just to answer your question. Go back. I forgot to answer it.
That's okay.
I don't do the indie comic thing that much. That's the short answer. I mean, I was going to say on Read Comic Online, I'll see some pop up in that suggested list on the side. And so I'll check a few out that way. But in general, no, all my money goes towards DC. I've got a fairly big pull list. It's, a stack maybe about that big in a month is what I end up.
Yeah. I've got myself to the point where I'm reading everything except for like waking hours, and I'm thinking about dropping Teen Titans too. But they're like it's almost everything. I'm like, oh my goodness! Like I read some indie comics, and the reason I brought that up is because we were talking about world building. There's been some amazing world, like Scott Snyder's doing an indie book. I just read it last night, Noctura, and I'm like, that's the kind of comic you get mad at the end, right? Like you get angry when it's over because you want to know what's going on. Oh. They're doing some phenomenal world building on the side, but I don't think it'll ever measure up to what we're seeing that's been established for 80 years. It's not going to be able to.
No, that's exactly it. Well, and the thing is, it's very sad, but I do believe that comics is at best an art form that is in danger and therefore in flux. They're changing how they do things. So, for example, the DC comics that we get now have the main story, and then they put sub stories. The sub story in the back. That way, they can have more stories, and they're trying to give you more value. So, it's definitely at best, it's in danger. At worst, I feel like it's becoming largely a dying art form. I don't think it'll ever go away, but I feel like the heyday of comic books, which was first embraced by the servicemen overseas, and then secondarily by the children. When the servicemen came home and stopped reading comic books, it was the children that embraced it, and then they grew up and became grown-ups, and they kept reading, and then there was still another generation of people that read. I'm part of that. I'm part of that generation. But now the kids don't read, so you're dealing with a fan base that is continuously getting older.
Well, I would argue a little bit that the kids, yes, they don't read, but they are getting that kind of introduction into at least the art form through manga.
That's true. And manga sells
and anime mostly, but one thing about that I've noticed, like with Demon Slayer, anything, Tokyo Ghoul specifically, because I had the novel and watched the show, it's so close to the source material. And I think that is a shame that we don't see that carried over. And it's clearly working. It worked well with Invincible too. Yeah.
Okay, you've probably heard my take on, for example, the DC film universe.
Right.
Okay, well, I've enjoyed most of the movies, but as far as continuity goes, it's a bit of a train wreck because that's
an understatement.
Yeah. Well, I know your point of view too. Yeah. But as far as I feel like, okay, first of all, let's go back to the Snyder Cut. I was excited about that because when I compared it to the original theatrical release, I was like, okay, this is definitely better. I personally enjoyed it better because that's my style of filmmaking. I like that visual appearance. I like, give me more stuff. I want more stuff that people would cut out. I want to know what's going on. And there was only really one scene where I was like, yeah, they probably could have cut that out. But everything else, I was like, cool. And for me, it was like, well, it didn't make sense to go, let's do two Snyder for movies, right? You got Man of Steel and then Batman v Superman, and then say, nope, we're done. We're gonna totally bugger
the whole thing.
Right. It should have been like, okay, well, let's at least finish it off with this movie, and then restart it or something like that, or have like a big universe changing multiverse event where they can rework it however they want to. But instead, we have these two branches. And so we have movies that I enjoyed. Like I enjoyed Aquaman. I enjoyed the first Wonder Woman. The second one was kind of wonky in a really wonky kind of way. But so the Shazam was fun. It was, but how do these all connect? It's so weird how they all connect because they're trying to write the Snyderverse out of existence. So the whole thing is like, there's some good things about it. There's some great castings, and then there's some weird things about it. And
there really is.
There definitely, I can totally admit that. But I will say this. Is the Snyderverse how I would have started off a DC Films universe? My answer is no.
I would hope not. I'm not a big Snyder fan, but I would hope not.
That's okay. I would probably start my DC universe off with a Superman movie, and you release the Superman movie at Christmas because you want it to be a family movie, and you want everyone to walk out of that theater feeling like $1 million. You want the world to remember
like
why they
Shazam
love
did.
it. Right. Boom. Shazam was almost like he got the treatment that Superman should have gotten. At least
Exactly.
That's how I feel. Then the next movie you do is Batman. So you do Superman and Batman, boom, right off the bat. And then in those movies, you can introduce another character. And so then the next two movies are two other characters. Maybe it's Green Lantern and Wonder Woman. And then you begin to have these characters kind of make appearances in each other's movies, but they get their own movie first. And each character
need an origin story for to bring in new people.
Right. And the Green Lantern movie should have been really cosmic. And you have to have the Aquaman movie really just, I feel like that one was actually pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but they really did.
It was pretty good.
The Atlantis stuff, right? Like that's how I would have done an Aquaman movie, right?
That's
the
absolutely.
whole Battle for the Throne thing, that would have been what I would have done. And so the point is, I would have stayed with a more comic accurate interpretation of these characters rather than Snyder's very unique, dark, gritty interpretation, right? Of these characters.
You mean the murderous psychopaths? Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, because when Batman, I mean, personally, visually, and for the most part, how, for example, Ben Affleck behaved as Batman, I feel like he was a great Batman. There was in the suit, that's my favorite movie suit. However, Snyder wanted him to be really, really dark, and he's like blasting people with the machine guns or whatever on the Batmobile. I feel like that was like, okay, in real life, if there was a vigilante like Batman, he'd have to probably maim people and kill the odd person. If you want a Batman with a life expectancy of longer than 3 nights, he's gonna have to, right? Brutal. But this is, we can suspend disbelief because this is a fictional universe where it's already well established the basic attributes of what each of these characters is like.
And that's having a code.
Boom.
Being strict to that code.
Right. So the first thing they do is they should make it comic accurate, as far as comic accurate as you possibly can, because it worked with the comics. There's still a fan base. It's the recognizable version of the characters. So what can you keep at all costs for the characters for the movie? And then whatever doesn't happen to work, then you change that. That would be how I would have approached it. So no, you're absolutely right about the more comic accurate you keep it, the better it is, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, and even I do talk a lot about how good the MCU does with that. I think in you could have taken it even a step further when Batman is more of a multiple movie man. You bring in that mentorship with Robin, with Dick. You know what I mean? You could make it so massive. Whatever the hell the heads up are doing there, or the high ups are doing there, clearly aren't thinking, because they have gold in their hand. They just need to know how to utilize it. And I don't think what's the new one, race swapping Clark Kent, I don't think that's gonna do it. You may make a fraction of your audience happy, but people are gonna be like, okay. you know what I'm saying? Well,
you end up alienating fans. Here's the thing. The first question is, what was wrong with Clark Kent Superman the way he was?
Nothing, or he wouldn't be beloved like he is.
Exactly. Now, I understand making small changes. I was actually I was on the Caster Corner podcast. It's not aired yet. It'll be aired in like 3 weeks. We talked a few days ago, and we touched on that a little bit. And it's okay to make small changes where it makes sense to make those changes. But in general, if it's worked for all that time, why would, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Right? There's no need to. So as far as you've got the DC universe could have been a lot more successful, and where Marvel did work, and I take a lot of slack for this actually. When I say I really enjoyed the Marvel universe, there are some people who become upset with me. And I'm like, well,
that's silly.
Well, they tried to change things, but they kept it comic accurate as much as they could. And the movies were just fun. I didn't walk out of there feeling heavy. Now, there's obviously, because it's really Disney owned, there's going to be little tick boxes here and there. But in the end, I want to go to the theater. I want to have a good time. And that's it. I want to escape and have a good time. And so what you have with this whole Superman thing, Clark Kent being black, the question is, why didn't they? I mean, I don't know for sure, but as far as what I'm hearing is they're not going to use Calvin Ellis or Val Zod. Like, why not Calvin Ellis?
Perfect opportunity. President Superman, like, come on.
Right? I just
off of Barack Obama. Like, how much more could you ask for? It's gold in your hands.
Right. And the thing is, then you establish that this Superman is from a different place in the multiverse. And then you have two different Supermans that you can work with, but instead they just chose to, I mean, I don't understand for sure yet. I don't know for sure, but it seems like they're just making Clark Kent like a black fella. And it's like, but that's, now you fundamentally changed an aspect of the character. And the question is, if you have to make Clark Kent black, is that also kind of racist against white people? I don't know. It's a question. I'm asking an actual question. I know.
Right? It's so debatable because it's so silly to me. And I understand a lot of the, if they want diversity, changing a side character, character that, or creating, they did it with Jimmy. Yeah. And it actually, I loved Makad Brooks. I did watch season 1 and 2 of Supergirl, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I dipped out there, towards the end of season 2, but Makad Brooks is a great actor. He did a good job with that. Why not do what they're doing with Superman and Lois, and instead have made maybe John Henry Irons? Like, that show is everything Superman fans have been waiting for.
It is very good. I don't like the idea that he keeps getting his ass kicked. I've mentioned that in my reviews.
Yeah.
It's like it's his show, and he gets his ass pummeled almost every time he fights, and then he'll kind of gain the upper hand. But it's like, I think that's the one thing they're missing, is that Superman is he knows how to use his powers really well.
Yes.
And he's very smart. Like, people, but I understand why they're doing it. They're trying to push the story forth, and Superman's always holding back, and he doesn't want to hit his brother. I totally get all that. And I understand how it happened the way it did, but I'm just kind of like, yeah, he's my main guy, and he's always just getting knocked out.
I do like that show though. Like, when I was watching the reveal of John Henry, I swear I screamed. I was so excited. Yeah. Like, I really thought it was Lex Luthor, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, different multiverse. And then I was like, oh my God, this is huge. Like, I know I say this all too much, and sometimes I just say it to, kind of take a jab at Snyder fans. But when Jeff Johns is included in a lot of these projects, he does fantastic. And I think if he lets, if they gave him, they did previously, but maybe it's just my bias. If they gave him a bigger role, I think it would be beneficial to the company, or at least to staying true to kind of the source and how to make it go from paper to film.
I think they need to completely reboot the entire DC universe with Flashpoint. That's what I'd be hoping they would do.
Yes.
Completely reboot the DC universe and restart it with the Superman. Now, you can keep characters in. You've got Sasha Calle.
Supergirl.
Now, I'm still not sure if she's playing actual Kara or whatnot.
I don't think, what?
Suit, that's not Kara's suit.
It's not. It's Laura Kent's.
I could have been Supergirl from the Injustice universe.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm totally cool. She looks fantastic. The suit looks weird because we saw her in wires and stuff, but I'm sure when it's on screen, I'm sure it will look good for what it is. And they're probably saying, well, they've got their Kara Danvers in the TV show. Now we're going to diversify things over here. So I don't care as long as they're not just race swapping her out, I'm okay.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's like, what was wrong with the original established Kara? But
I think she looked, for what it was worth, working all day in the suit and everything. I think she looked good. She's a pretty girl.
Yeah.
And seeing her interact with Andy Muschietti, I don't know if you saw that little video when he oh my God.
I put that on my channel. I was like, I was so
misty-eyed. I was like, I don't know you, but I want to hug you because I'm really happy for you right now.
Yeah.
She was so sweet.
She got the chance of a lifetime with that. But they could keep her in the DC universe. That's the point. You could reboot it with the Flashpoint, keep in what worked, get rid of what didn't, and then boom, you've got a whole new start. And you establish in the beginning with a small monologue after the events of Flashpoint. With the next movie, you establish. Take 2 minutes and have like the thing that kind of establishes, showing the multiverse, all the Earths, and say, this is what happened. This event happened, and da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Explain it away or whatever.
Absolutely do it. Right. Have an end game like Endgame, where you have Thanos down the line, like not in the third movie, down the line, play the long game.
Yeah, and that would probably benefit them, but they're kind of in it too deep now. I mean, Gal Gadot plays a wonderful Wonder Woman. She's loved by fans, for the most part, and I would be sad to see her go. But if it meant rebooting it and making something that is more cohesive and more coherent and just tighter, because you have currently basically two different universes. Like the first two movies don't match the rest of the universe.
Exactly.
So you need something more coherent and more cohesive. Just start over again, wipe the slate clean, start over again, and do something that is more comic accurate and more of the fans will be happy with.
Oh yeah, and I think it could be just as big as Marvel. So back to toy collecting.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I can talk about comics all day. So if a new collector, because I noticed in your bio when I was looking, there's like this brand, Toy Biz, and there's a bunch where, if you're giving advice to it, somebody that wants to get into collecting or somebody that kind of just is, doing it for fun, where would you have them start with? There was a bunch of brands.
I know. You know what? I would say start with what's current. I know it kind of sucks to say that, but all the older stuff costs a lot of money now.
Oh yeah.
So for example, when I had a few holes in my superpowers collection. I still do have a few, but when COVID happened, right, and everyone locked down, I was like, well, can't go on the toy hunt, can I? I could only order a few things. And then my YouTube revenue went in the toilet. I got my income tax back. And I was like, well, maybe it's time to order a bunch of those superpowers figures that I've, so I got I got a bunch of the hard to find ones like Mr. Miracle and Captain Marvel.
So cool.
Yeah. I rebought the Hall of Justice. I bought like a bunch of the vehicles, like boxed without, like, I like to put the stickers on and everything in the video for everyone to have that experience that maybe they didn't get to have as a kid. So I just bought a ton of superpower stuff, and it was so expensive. It was like thousands of dollars just to buy the superpower stuff, and it was only because I got my income tax back. So buying the older stuff, even DC Universe Classics, which would be like stuff from like Mattel, right? Are you familiar with DC Universe Classics?
Yes.
Okay, just to buy those online out of the package per figure is just cost prohibitive if you're starting. It's just not easy. So you'd have to pick and choose what you wanted. Whereas at least now, if you want to start with what's currently on the shelves and say you're a DC fan, a G.I. Joe fan, a Ninja Turtles fan coming up, because the 4 Turtles are coming up. There's also Super 7. There's also NECA Turtles out there. There's so much stuff currently that you can build your collection with. I would just start with whatever you can find. So like if you're a DC fan, I would just start with the DC multiverse figures and maybe Spin Master. Yeah.
I think there's some new He-Man ones incoming too.
Yeah, well, there's right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I got a box over there. So those are the Motu Origins. They look like the old ones, but they have updated articulation. And then the Motu Revelations are coming out, and they're going to be fantastic. So there's plenty on the market right now for a new collector to just dive into. You don't really need to get the old stuff. You save that for when, there's nothing out that you want, and then you go back and buy the odd piece here and there. But it's not cost effective to try and get your hands on like that behind me there. that's the good guy wall for the DC Universe Classics. And those are just
awesome.
Right. But to get that now would be very, very expensive.
Right.
You'd have to like sell off your non-essential organs on the black market.
Yeah, probably shouldn't advise doing that.
No,
Have
don't.
you done your HeroClix one yet? Your video on your HeroClix stuff that you had unboxing?
I am very sad because it's funny. No, it's funny because I think about it almost every day. I've got them right here beside my desk, and I took all the pictures for it. I took some video footage for it. It's all in a file, but I'm too dumb to wrap my head around the game.
And I don't understand it either.
Yeah, my wife and I were like, I was like, okay, I know a bit about it. Can you read it too? And we'll kind of come together on it. And she got to the point where she was like, well, you're supposed to have these hero tokens, and it doesn't come with hero tokens, but in the instructions are like, just use whatever random crap you got around, like bottle caps or bits of paper or something like that. And I was like, what? They didn't send an essential part of playing the game. And so I just didn't know how to handle it. And I never made the video.
I've seen your video on that you were going to, and I'm like, they're kind of cool looking, but the game is like, you better be a scientist or something. Like, yeah, it's so weird.
And I took a bunch of close-up shots of these things, right? Close up, they don't look too good.
Oh no. No, I noticed that a little bit about the death metal ones that you were doing recently. I don't know if it's just me or if it's because I loved that event. Metal and death metal were amazing. And you were looking at the Superman, and it was like, I don't know if it's the brand. It just kind of looked off to me. Well, you know what I mean?
No, I do. McFarlane is, hold on, right here. McFarlane's one of those guys that with his designs and the paint apps, when it works, it really works. She looks amazing. And the face
beautiful.
Paint, yeah, for a factory figure, the face paint on Wonder Woman looks fantastic. And so when their company gets it right, they really get it right. Mm-hmm. But when they cock up, they really cock up. And I, as a reviewer, I got to be honest and say, hey, this could be better. So I deal with it by making fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way.
Yeah, because some reviewers bitch about it.
Well, I mean, I don't want to making fun of it's a little bit nicer way to go, but I guess I can't say anything whenever I'm mad about something in a book. I bitch about it. So when you, I know you have a bunch. I know you do. Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do actually.
You do?
I do. I've got a few. Hold on. I will get up right now and I will get it for you.
Okay, go for it.
There's 3 of them, but I'll get one of them. Okay. So these are my favorites. Now this one's customized.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And basically there was a lighter blue Superman figure that came out in the DC Universe Classics that never actually came out. It was never actually released to the public, and it was supposed to be part of a Bizarro Superman 2-pack. And all the, fans were like, where is it? When's it coming out? It never did. They started showing up online for like a lot of money. And I was like, well, if I don't get it, I'm not going to get it because I know it's never going to see release.
Right, exactly.
Right. So I was the guy. If you go and look up unreleased light blue Superman, there's a forum where people are talking about it. The first one that I got, I accidentally paid like $220 for it.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't mean to. Like, I just used to set my buy it now price at the price I thought people would, not. I just thought I'll just put it up here. They'll only bid down here, but I don't want to think about it. So I put it at some stupid high number, like $250, right? And this guy every day went in and bid me up. Like every day he would go in, you could see what he's thinking. He'd go, oh, I really want that. It's rare. And he'd go bid. And it would go up by like $25 every day. And I was like, wow, this guy is going in and bidding every single day. And he'd go back the next day and go, wow. Okay. Well, I was willing to pay this much. Maybe I'll just pay this much for it. Bid. And I just kept watching it go up. And I was like, well, looks like I'm paying over $200 for this one. But in the end, gosh, I'm the one that's laughing because I got it and it was never released.
That's true. That's awesome though. I love it. I didn't see, I don't know about the toy, so I didn't know that would never been released. Now you say they're customized. Does that mean like,
well,
someone painted it?
these ones here, the lighter blue ones,
Mm-hmm.
I think these were probably just a plastic color test, I'm assuming. So the head that it came with, which is not this one, that's a Liber Majo DC Collectibles Superman head.
Okay.
And the cape is actually from DC Multiverse. And the boots, I'm moving over.
Oh.
The boots, like from the knee down, that's actually a DC Direct Hush Superman figure. And, and the fists, I forget where the fists are from. They're from somewhere else. Yeah. So to make these figures look good, you have to customize them because the factory, they're horrible. They came with a rock hard cape. The face looked like it had just melted onto his shoulders. Yeah. So that's when I say I've customized it, it's like I'm not good at painting. That's the one thing I try to avoid.
All I pictured is somebody sitting there just like painting it, and I'm like, you'd be able to tell that, right? Like, so I wasn't sure what you meant. Yeah.
No, and I don't paint because I've seen some people really try to paint the S.
Oh,
and
boy.
God bless them, but it just doesn't look right. Like, you can tell that it's been customized, and I don't like to paint the figure if possible because you get paint rub. So when you move the joints, right?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Imagine lifting his arm up; it'll scuff all the paint off. So
yep.
I try not to do that as well. But yeah,
do you ever dip into the sideshow collectible ones? I mean, I know those aren't figures so much; those are more statues. But I always see them when I'm checking the news, like on Bleeding Cool, and I'm like, I want that. Okay, and don't want it anymore.
I wish I could. I really do.
Yeah, they're expensive but beautiful.
Yeah, they're like $500 a figure, which is like for that price, that's like 3/4 of my review budget for a month. Gone. One video.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you never make those back in views because most people actually collect the smaller ones. So you have a smaller audience for the sideshow collectibles. So
see, I would have never known that.
Yeah, I bought here's a good example. I bought a big Optimus Prime years ago. And to get it, I sold all my Marvel Legends. I had like 30 or 40. I sold them all, and that's how I got this Optimus Prime. And it was massive. Like, you could stand a G.I. Joe next to it, and it was in scale. It's huge.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Or was it a 6-inch? Either way, you could stand. Anyway, so the point is, it was a lot of money, and I did the video of it, and it didn't do very well. And I was like, well, bang for buck, that didn't make any sense. So I can't. And Sideshow's not going to send me expensive stuff, but I do have a fan. I don't want to say a fan because that puts me above them. I'm not above
get
anybody.
it.
A super friend.
A viewer.
Yep. A super friend sent me an 89 Batman. So he's up on the shelf.
Cool.
And I bought a Superman because, of course, I bought the Superman.
You got to have the matching pair.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Last kind of question here. As far as toys goes, what you're collecting, action figures, toys, I call them toys. Is there any that you would like that you missed out on? You know you can't get, and you would wish that they would re-release?
That's tough because I perseverate and I obsess about them. And I'm one of those people that's like, it will be mine. Oh, yes.
That's how I am with my comics. Got to have the whole run. You got to have the whole run. And the run doesn't start at 1. It doesn't end at 3. It ends at 1,000.
Exactly. You got to keep going. So what have I missed? I really don't know because everything I really want as far as figures go, I think I've got most of them.
That's pretty awesome.
I suppose Superpowers Collection Cyborg. Yeah. That'd be the one.
You're missing your cyborg.
Yeah, well, because over there, but he's so expensive. Like, if you look him up on eBay to get a mint Kenner Superpowers Cyborg, well, you're back to the whole having to harvest your organs and sell them on the black market.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's awesome, though. Thank you. I see. I don't know. Like, you have a few small things here and there, but nothing to the collecting nature of it. And it's so neat to see a different side of the fandom. You know what I mean? Like, it's still shared, but I'm saying, like, just a different portion of it. I love it. So, last little bit here. Tell, what you're working on. Kind of give yourself a little free commercial here.
Oh, well, currently I'm working on a video, although it'll be out by the time this comes out, but currently I'm doing the DC Multiverse Robin King
Oh my gosh, Robin King's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Robin King, I love Robin King.
Yeah.
He's like my favorite new character.
He is one of the figures that I was the most excited about. And then the Wonder Woman's going to be in that video, and I'm reviewing the Batman again, just because he comes with the legs with the collectible Dark Father. So I'm currently working on that, and that's really it. There's not a lot of stuff coming out for DC. Except for
that's a shame.
Yeah, except for multiverse, like for new figures, there's really not a lot. It's just whatever Todd releases in general, and then the occasional Mafex and Mezco 1/12 collective.
See that? Yeah. I never thought they would release a Robin King like that. So that is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we could only get Todd to also pay more attention to the established characters as well,
right? Not just the metal versions.
Exactly. Yeah. No one can convince me on this planet that Robin King is going to sell more than Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Green Arrow, Black Canary.
No, but he's definitely cool still.
He's awesome. Yeah, I love him.
He's like the crazy Bruce Wayne, but he doesn't want to be Batman, and he's fucking psychotic, and I love it. And he's weird. Like, I don't really care for Riley Rossmo's art, but it worked well with his character. It made it almost more crazy. I love it. Love that character. So, go ahead.
I was going to say he's got a plan for everyone in the Justice League, and he's the guy that carries it out. Right?
Yeah.
Like Batman has the plan, but never has to carry it out. Robin King and his world carried out the plans for the Justice League.
They made him so OP with that utility belt, but I still loved it so much. I was like, I want more of this. So I'm hoping they bring him over for something. Everything exploded, so we'll have to wait and see. But make sure you guys check out Brad, the DC Universe Geek. I will have his link in both the pinned comment and the description. So make sure you check him out. He does wonderful work. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.